Today is 28th, right? Today is the 28th, right? 27th? It's Friday. Okay, if today's the 27th, I typed the date wrong. Sorry. Anyway, so we have a topic for today. We're going to do that a little bit later. Okay? And we're going to walk through the midterms. What can you expect? Okay? So far? I have a lot of blank looks. Am I missing something? Something going on? I don't know. You look like you don't know what I'm talking about. Everybody's faces. Are you okay?
Because of test.
Did you have a test today? Already?
Yes.
우리 학과 다른 학과.
We have
Really?
Yeah.
Professors were agreed to do tests next week. Interesting. Now I understand. Okay, no problem. The reason for the video is my evening class. I can't go. I should do a review and I can't go because we're having a celebration of Ishigyun's Hwangap tonight. No, actually his birthday was before, but we're doing it tonight. So that's why the video, I have to put it up online. I will also put the same video available to you if you want to see it again. So we don't need that. Oh, why aren't you? Why is an MS Word in here? Only because it's easy for me. Oh, I hate this. Okay, so we're going to walk through. First, I want to tell you that the video from last week, I have your papers, I haven't graded them. It's actually not going to be graded. It's basically, yes, you did it. Looks like most of your answers are reasonable. There is no perfect right answer for most of this. Okay. It looks like you paid attention, fine, 1 point. Or there's no paper, or there's a paper, but it looks like you weren't paying attention, it's nonsense, then that's a 0 point. Okay? I'll give that to you after the test. You don't want to worry about it now. The test is not about diet. I'm not going to include diet on your test. Also, word mapping. That concept is not on the test. All right, so this paper is my notes of the things that I talked about. Now, for the 9th class, there's a little bit less because their lecture time is less than yours, so we cover less stuff. And what I'm going to do in the next 10 or 12 minutes is walk through my list. If you look in your notebook, you'll find little pink checks. Those checks don't mean anything. It just means, yeah, that's what I'm looking for. It doesn't mean that's on the test. It means that matches my shopping list. Okay? Now, I didn't mark everything, and I'm not grading your books. In the back of your book, on the last page that you wrote, or the next page, there's a little comment. There will be a mark. The mark will be a plus sign, which means I'm very happy. A check sign. A check sign that means, okay, good enough. Or a minus sign. The minus sign is in brackets. So the minus sign will look like this. The minus sign means I'm disappointed. I'm not satisfied. But there is no grade on your notebook at this time. So, if you got a minus, you want to talk to some other people and find out what's missing. All the things on the 학습 자료, if you printed it out or didn't print it out, I don't really care. What I do care is the comment, is the idea in your notebook. So let's go through my shopping list. Bics and color. Are you ready for that? BICS, Basic Interpersonal Communicative Skill. CALP, Cognitive Academic Language Processing. TOEIC and TOEFL, how that fits in Bics and color. 5 types of talk. The star design and the 5 words. And what do they mean? How can we say that debate is different from discussion? What is speeches or mini speeches? What is Q&A? Right. That's 4. What's the 5th? Discussion, debate, speeches, Q&A, chatting. Chatting does not mean online. You should hopefully already know this. Don't say I think, or in my opinion, or anything else that weakens your argument. We only use I think for when it really is a weak argument. So my brain is working and I'm coming to this idea, but I'm not really sure. Okay? I believe something more spiritual. And usually we don't need to say I know, because if you know it, sounds like a fact, you just say it. The world is round. All scientists know this. Fine. You don't. I think the world is round. No. I know. Usually. But occasionally we'll use I know when we're arguing. Like, no, I know that he's my friend. So perfectly clear to me. But generally we don't need to say it. So I gave you in class kind of 2 definitions or 2 explanations for think, know, believe. You should know those. When you come into an issue statement, always, 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 first thing you do, define the terms. You need to know what the words mean. You need to know which words can be argued. What's the meaning of good? Good is very subjective. Your good and your good is not the same. So, part of our goal is to define the terms. Show where you get your information. Show the facts. Basically, it means make a little note. Citation. Did it come from the Korea Times? What day? Did it come from a website? What website? You don't have to give the full URL, the full juso when you're doing discussion and debate. When you make your argument, you save that citation for later when you say blah, blah, blah. Oh, really? How do you know that? Oh, because now you have your citation. It's in your hand. It doesn't have to go in your T chart, but it needs to be available. What are the 2 research types? We gave a whole kind of a table, a chart. There's something on the 학습 자료, but also we talked about it in class. You should be able to talk about research types. When we are thinking about our arguments, when we're doing our brainstorming, etc., we have to look past the easy answer. Not the first thing you know. You have to dig deeper. Do a little research. Talk to people who don't think like you. If you only write down the easy stuff you already know, you're going to lose. Because the other guy's digging deeper. Remember that statistics can lie. So always look for the mean, the median, and the mode and compare them. Which one seems to make more sense? Think about outliers, the strange number that makes everything else look weird. 3, 4, 5, 7. to 27. Suddenly that 27 makes everything else strange. Should you use it? Should you throw it away? Think about any outliers. You should know lots of words instead of but. Don't only use but, it sounds less educated. The last class we did together was moral hazard. So what's the meaning of moral hazard? Remember I talked about a coin toss, a coin flip. Heads I win, tails do over. I can't lose. That's kind of a moral hazard. The word provocative, exciting the mind. It's a little bit different than controversial, which means people argue. Con is everything that's not pro in your teacher. Why do we worry about how content and language mix? Well, one reason is because for the more complex thoughts, for the more difficult subjects, we need more difficult English. Or we can't. We can't talk about it. We can't talk about complicated things with simple language. Also, it also helps us to understand where our brain is concentrating. When something is very complex, we're using a lot of brain power, cognitive load. Okay? Remember musical math? Talked about that in class. I didn't find this in any notebook. We didn't talk about musical math?
Yes.
Okay, forget about musical math. It's in my notes. It's not in yours. Really? Interesting. Okay, remember the idea about brainstorming?
Yeah.
It should be fast. It should be exciting. No negativity. No judging. Don't worry about judging. We judge later. First, we just get lots of ideas out there. Short time, lots of energy. The words obsolete, ancient, and archaic are similar, but not quite the same. We talked about that. I spent a little time in class. We talked about the glass being half full and half empty. The idea of an optimist sees the glass as being half full. Well, we can still go. We have lots of gas in the car. And the pessimist sees the tank as half empty. Oh, we gotta buy gas. We can't go anywhere. We don't have any. Discretion. The word discretion. What are the objectives of this class? Why are we here? We talked about that in the first week. It's on the subject. No, the kanigin so. What's the difference between holiday and vacation? What's the purpose of a holiday or vacation? Why do you get it? Why does the government give it to us? What's the meaning of compulsory? It means must. The word sight, S-I-T-E, juso, has two feelings. One is on the ground, on the earth, on the map. The other S-I-T-E is a website, the address on the internet. Really, it means kind of the same thing, but one is about earth and one is about the web. That's different from cite, C-I-T-E, which means citation, tell me where you got it. It's different from sight, I can see. So we have 4 words that sound the same. 2 words that are almost the same. Be careful. We talked about too big to fail, part of that moral hazard question. Think about what that could mean. Now, this next section, I'm not sure we talked about at night, but we did talk about it in daytime. So, night students, listen, and if it seems too strange to you, okay, don't worry. Gender or sex, what's the difference? Sex is biology, what your body is, and we can argue about that. X and Y chromosomes, body parts. But gender is how we represent ourselves in society. I am a male, I am a female, I am a mix, I am a nun, whichever. Gender is very, very controversial in society today. So gender, okay. Conventions, the normal, accepted way of doing things, convention. It is a convention in Korea that the professor stands in the front of the classroom. Strict. Strict is kind of similar, kind of opposite to discretion. Strict means following the rules very closely, no flexibility. Discretion means I have some flexibility inside the rules, that we trust you to make the wise choice. Transition, making the change from A to B. It's not turn the switch, usually. There's something involved. But even when we just turn the switch, how do we feel about it? What happens? So transition is this moving from A to B. Data or information. One man's data is another man's information. What do we mean by data and information? What's beer talk? Beer talk is the idea that we just sit around, relax, and share ideas. And senior, junior is a little bit less important. Sitting around the pizza, sitting around the beer bottle, sitting around the soju bottle. That's something close to discussions. We don't have to say you're A or B. When we're talking, remember, always make your key point first, and then support your key point. I found on the internet, blah, blah, blah. No. A is X. I found on the internet that Dr. Kim Jong-min said that A is always equal to X and A is never equal to Y. Okay. Dr. Kim Jong-min is famous because he's a professor at Seoul National University. So always give the argument first, the key point first. The word resolved. Resolved, we're firmly decided. It is used in formal debate instead of an issue statement. It is a starting point. Resolved, men are smarter than women. An issue statement might be, men are smarter than women? Question mark. Are men smarter than women? So we have a topic which is broad, an issue which is narrower, and if you get a resolve, then it is very, very definite, and you must agree or disagree. Given. Some things that are presented that you don't argue, that we have agreed this will be true for this discussion. Even if I actually don't agree to it. For this conversation, for this discussion, for this debate, we are accepting it as true. We will not argue this point. Given that 50.2% of society are female, okay? Now it might be 51.8732. 50.2% of society, that's our given. We're not going to argue that. You cannot tell me, oh no, 51% are men. No, we have a given. We don't argue the given. We accept that as true, and then we go to our resolved or our issue. Consume, to use it up. To consume might be to eat it. It might be, my automobile consumes a lot of gasoline, but his motorcycle consumes very little. And her car consumes diesel, and his car consumes LPG, LNG. So consume, to eat it up. I consumed it all. Campus. Remember, we can argue about what exactly is a campus, but it's kind of like the grounds, the feeling, the area. A proposition. A proposition is another form. We have that resolution, we have the issue. Proposition. Plagiarism. To steal somebody's words or ideas and not give them credit. It's okay to take somebody's words if you give them credit, but if you don't. Drunken. We talked about drunken being olden English or modern English. You could say archaic English, out-of-date English. It's still used to describe, for example, a person who is habitually drunk. The drunken old man. But nowadays we more say he's drunk. That drunk man. That drunk old man. But drunken is not wrong. It's just not used very much because it's out of date. Many notebooks have this note, passive versus active. And I don't remember talking about that. But I made a note here that many people wrote passive versus active. Were we talking about passive and active tense in English? Or are we talking about your behavior in class? I'm not really sure. So I'm not going to test on passive and active because I don't remember talking about it. But so many students' notebooks have it. What's the difference? Homework and self-study. Homework sounds like something your teacher told you to do outside of class. Self-study is what you do for you. At least that's my definition. Hypothesize. To say, I think this is true. Let's test it. It becomes a possible rule, but we need to make sure. Also, I used a slash in class. And a slash usually means A. My slash. Just love my slash. Can mean A or B, or it can mean A and or B. A or B, or A and B. Slash for or. Could be or it can be that's my notes. That's my review of what we did this semester. Any questions?
Please tell me data or information.
Data versus information. One man's data is another man's information. Tells us, is this ours? Jung Ho Chan. I think, not my Steve. Data or information? No. Not me. Okay, so data is pieces that each by itself has no meaning for me. I can't use it. So your cell phone counts data. How many bits came to you? But one bit is nothing. We have to put bits together to be meaningful. So information becomes meaningful. Information is something you hope you can understand. It makes sense to somebody. Now the problem is you collect many pieces of data from a survey. She is 23. She's a Hengenhakwa student at Yeongnam University. And she said, boy and girl should not live together before they marry. Those are all pieces of data. You put it together for one person. There's like 6 pieces of data. She, 23, 행정학과, 영남대, not live together. And you have another series of data points. He is 26. Business administration student. Gamyeongdae. Live together okay. Each of these little pieces of information, even when all for one person, isn't very meaningful. Even if I knew the person's name. But now I get 17 people, and I put all this information, all these pieces of data together, and I get information like, most boys think live together is okay, most girls do not. 67% of boys say okay, 40% of girls say okay. People more than 25, blah, blah, yes, and no. Okay, so we start collecting all these data points to make information something I can use. And that's fine. And that's my study. But now Mr. Kim uses my study and he finds 5 other people's studies and he takes those 5 studies and puts them together to make his information. That means my study, my report, my information is his data. So one man's information is another man's data. One man's data is another man's information. We can argue because it depends how we use it. It depends whether we think that is meaningful, if that is telling us something by itself. So one man's data is another man's information. Good question. Any other questions? Yes?
What is too big to fail?
Too big to fail. An organization is so important, usually because of size, that we cannot allow it to fail. We don't want Daewoo Shipbuilding to fail, to go bankrupt, because it will affect 8,000 workers, 22,000 people living in that city directly from the paycheck, the family of the 8,000. And then all the businesses that they shop at, the gas station, the Oriniji, the et cetera, the McDonald's. So then that 8,000 goes to 22,000, goes to 94,000 people living in Goje and near Goje, and then it affects G Market. And so one business is so important because of its indirect influences. So too big to fail. But if Jim's boat repair, which has only 6 employees, is going bankrupt, we say, not so important, you die, but we can't let you die. You're too big to fail. You're too important. Your impact is too great. We can't let the business fail. Now we might let the owners go bankrupt, but we can't let the business close. We can't let the business fail. So I gave the example of in General Motors in the US, one year it went bankrupt and everybody who owned stock, their stock was worth 0 cents. Because, we're bankrupt. The government took the company and sold it to somebody else for a low price, almost free. With the loans and everything, almost free. So all the people who owned stock, bought stock in the stock market, they lost everything. They bought it for $17 a share or whatever, and in 5 years it went down to 0, and they're out. So the company as an organization survives even if the ownership does not. Too big to fail. Good question. Any others? Okay, then I'm going to stop this review, and I'm going to turn off the camera, and then we'll do today's topic.